I'm Jordan Hatfield. This is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we talk The Monkey with Kolter and Chase Fugel. The Monkey is a 2025 horror comedy directed by Osgood Perkins, starring Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, and Kristen Convery. Look, I don't believe in possessed monkeys that go around trying to kill people, but if you ever see a monkey playing the drums, I suggest you play it safe. I mean, it can't hurt to run, right? Get in, we're going cinephiling. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Yeah, man. How are you guys?
Good.
You guys excited to talk The Monkey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I have been really excited about this movie. I've had it circled on my calendar for several weeks now.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah, all right.
Looking forward to this
Me too,
one.
yeah.
As you know, this is based on a short story by Stephen King that was published in The Skeleton Crew. Are you guys Stephen King fans?
Yeah. I went through a huge Stephen King phase in my teenage years, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a Stephen King fan.
I've got a love-hate relationship with Stephen King.
That's fair.
He is such an amazing character writer.
Yeah?
I don't know how he does it, but you read his stories and you get to know his characters like they're real people.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And of course, I love the horror aspects. I mean, he's got a twisted mind. Some of the stories he comes up with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, man.
Insane.
A whole lot of drugs. Right?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, some of those stories are very obviously cocaine-fueled.
But they're great. I love them.
Yeah.
However, my hatred for Stephen King comes from his endings. The endings of his stories can be so cheesy and dumb.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt about Pet Sematary.
That's probably my favorite Stephen King book, is Pet Sematary.
And you liked the ending in that one?
I mean, I can't say that I like the ending in any of his stories, but that story took some twists that I didn't see coming that put me in a whole new place of horror that I had never experienced before.
Yeah.
I think that book is a must-read for everybody. What other Stephen King books do you guys like?
Two of them are Cujo and Christine, which I would argue both have fairly decent endings. Cujo's a definitive. Christine's a little bit more kind of open-ended, but...
What's your favorite Stephen King, Chase?
I was saying I struggle with the ending of Pet Sematary, but the rest of it is like flawless. It is so good.
Agreed. Have either of you read the short story, The Monkey?
No.
I have not.
No, I understand it was very short.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's only like, I don't know, 20 pages, 25 pages or so.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have not read it.
I have read it, and it's very different than the movie.
Okay. Wildly or just a little bit?
The basic plot is the same.
Okay.
You've got a monkey who's killing people.
Sure.
However, it's much more serious in tone.
Okay.
And some of the characters, of course, are different. You know, Osgood Perkins in his film adaptation of The Monkey he's got to take some liberties. He's got to fill up some space.
Right.
He definitely took it in a direction that I wasn't quite expecting.
Okay.
This film is far more comical than I thought walking into it.
That was the best
me
part.
too.
Did the comedy work for you guys or not so much?
You know, I was somewhere in the middle. There were parts of it that worked really well for me and then parts that didn't. I really appreciated that right off the bat, it established what it was with that pawn shop scene.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to trick you into thinking it was something else.
And the character that drives that opening scene, I think Adam Scott is the father of the twins.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think it sets the tone perfectly. It's this blend of kind of comedy, dark humor, I should say, and horror. You know, you could argue that the tone kind of shifts gears a little bit back and forth throughout the movie, but I think that opening scene kind of does a good job of setting the table for the rest of the movie.
Like I said, I've had this film circled on my calendar for some time. I've been really excited about this movie. My expectations weren't too high, I think. They were reasonable, but I was very excited to see this film. And as soon as it started with the opening scene, the font, the music, I thought, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well
I thought that entire opening scene was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I've been laughing all night, all this morning, thinking about just little pieces of... We'll get into it, man. Sorry. Thinking of a part right now.
What part are you thinking of, Kolter? I want to hear.
Oh, the flaming baby carriage.
Oh, my God.
That's jumping.
That's great.
Yeah. And the mom's just pushing this carriage that's on fire. I'm assuming a flaming baby's inside. Instead of running away from it, she's just running with it while it's on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's pretty sick, but I loved it.
Those scenes that are so absurd and meant to be a little bit funny.
Yeah.
They're shot really well.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they are.
Even that scene with the burning baby carriage is like beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It's absurd. It's meant to be a little bit funny.
Yeah.
It's meant to be really dark. but it looks amazing
Oh
too.
yeah.
Or the lady when she falls and gets falls underneath the staircase and gets all the fishing hooks stuck in her face.
Yeah.
And then eventually her head gets on fire and she runs outside the house.
The best part of that for me was there's a couple scenes after that where they're in, I forget the guy's name, but they're in her house and there's a kind of a low angle shot and you can see the trail of like ash, like it's all charred where when her head was on fire and she was running through the house and you can see the trail.
I didn't see that.
I didn't see that either. I missed it.
It was just a nice little touch.
So I'm sitting back in my chair again. Opening scene. Really pleased with what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
Very excited about what's to come. And then shortly thereafter, we end up in a church.
Yeah.
And a reverend stands up. It's a funeral. And this, quote, rookie priest is presiding, played by Nico Del Rio. He's truly a rookie priest. He stands up, and what he has to say is pretty disrespectful. I get that it's supposed to be funny, but it's a funeral, and it just didn't work for me.
Sure.
I didn't find it funny.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me either.
Yeah.
Not that it was disrespectful. It just wasn't funny. And then I thought, uh-oh, where's the movie going to go from here?
Yeah. Yeah. I did find it funny.
Yeah.
But it was also...
Before we proceed, Kolter, I want to know, did you have any alcohol in you for this film?
No. I'm not a...
Because I imagine that would have made the movie a lot funnier.
No. But my brother and I both have a very dark sense of humor. And we were the only ones that were like... When somebody's body would explode unnecessarily, we were just, we were the only two assholes in the theater just laughing our asses off. Yeah, people probably thought we were sick.
Oh, that's great.
But no alcohol needed.
I think a lot of what made the Reverend scene not work for me was that the rest of the characters that filled the church had zero reaction to the stuff that he was saying.
Yeah.
For me, my experience in this film, the entire movie bounced back and forth between the greatness of the opening scene and the stupidity of the Reverend scene.
Okay.
I just felt that there were conflicting moods that often clashed more than they mingled, and too often the jokes just weren't funny.
Huh. Okay.
And the horror was obviously horrific. It was supposed to be shocking and funny in itself, but some of the comedy around the horror wasn't funny, and it led to just tonal inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First thoughts walking out was like, oh man, that was great. I enjoyed it. Had some good laughs. Good acting. Theo James was especially impressive in this. I thought I'd always written him off as being kind of a pretty boy cheeseball actor in movies like Insurgent and things like that until I saw him in what's on Netflix called The Gentleman. He's outstanding in that. And he was great in this. So you got a lot of quirky characters and some setups and payoffs that worked well. It was shot well. But I always, and then the critical sense kind of kicks in and I'm thinking, well, I think what Perkins was going for here was just kind of a weird metaphor for the random nature of kind of untimely death. But to your point, like some of that tonal kind of push and pull that was a little odd. I didn't think it detracted from the movie for me. I still think that it danced that line pretty well between being a dark comedy and a horror movie.
I found the opening scene quite funny.
Yeah.
But it was funny in a very dry, dark, subtle way. Where so many other parts of the film, well, the horror wasn't subtle, but the humor in that scene was more subtle.
Sure. I agree the humor was subtle. It's just funny to think about that scene and subtle.
I wouldn't say that the scene was subtle, but the comedy in that scene was subtle.
Yeah.
But so many other times in the rest of the film, it was like outlandish comedy.
Yeah.
And I just didn't find it that funny. And I think that was the problem. There are a lot of horror comedies out there, some of which I absolutely love. Zombieland, an amazing horror comedy.
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows. Have you guys seen that film?
Oh, yeah. The show's great, too.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Such a good movie. Shaun of the Dead is an English horror comedy that works really well. Did The Monkey work for you as well as some of these other horror comedies?
Yeah, for me it did. Comedies these days seem to be few and far between because, I don't know, we don't get into politics on this show, which I'm very thankful for, but there's been a lot of scrutinization with comedy in general. What's appropriate to joke about? What's not appropriate to joke about? So I like over the top. There were some of the things in this movie that were very Monty Python-ish. When there's a scene where the monkey is doing its thing and it's starting to clap the drum, and this is after many years of the two twin brothers thinking they had kind of gotten rid of this thing. I was going to call it a toy.
Ooh, you can't call it a toy.
That's right. Anyway, there's this scantily clad lady about to jump into a swimming pool, air conditioning unit falls off the roof, it electrifies this puddle next to the pool, and thusly the pool, you figure she's going to jump in and get electrocuted. But no, she jumps in as soon as she touches the water, her body just explodes into 50 parts.
Yeah.
And
He pulls her finger out of his mouth.
yeah, something very kind of Monty Python-ish. Yeah. So like unnecessarily exploding people is just gets me, I just love that stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, yeah, I had a blast. No pun intended.
So what was your favorite kill scene?
It's got to be the flaming baby carriage,
That's
So
a good
short, too.
Yeah, they were all
It's
funny.
a really short one.
But yeah, I think it was the more subtle, just the audacity of some lady pushing a flaming baby carriage. Why are you pushing it anymore at this point? Like, what are you doing?
Kolter just loves flaming babies. Chase, what was your favorite?
My favorite kill was when the guy went back to the house and he's looking for the monkey, and this lady's giving him the tour.
Oh, yeah.
They walk upstairs, and she, after fiddling with this door for what feels like forever, she gets it open. And there's a shotgun trap for some reason, and it just blows her away.
It just unnecessarily explodes all over the room.
Yeah.
I forgot. I think it was the guy who got trampled by 67 horses. When they opened the sleeping bag, it looked like somebody drop kicked a cherry pie.
Yeah.
You're talking to Uncle Chip. By the way, do you know who plays Uncle Chip?
Oh, no.
Osgood Perkins.
Oh, no kidding.
Big sideburns, Uncle Chip.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, he was great. Yeah.
So that was actually one of my favorite kill scenes, too, when the horses trample. When they
Forgot
open up
about
that
that.
sleeping bag. That was
Yeah.
They open
disgusting.
it up,
Oh,
it's just mush inside.
But I would say my favorite kill scene of the whole movie
Yeah.
is actually Bill.
Okay.
When he gets hit in the face by the bowling ball cannon,
Yeah.
and it shows his face on the wall, and his eyes are
It's
like
like an eyeball off to the side.
12 inches apart, and his nose is all crooked, and it's just mashed on the wall. That was nasty. What do you guys think of the monkey himself?
Surprisingly effective for something that is largely inanimate. I mean, inanimate in terms of it doesn't walk or run or chase you down. It's inherently creepy. I think most people are kind of creeped out by monkeys in general. And especially that toy, man, that specific, the monkey crashing symbols, which we've seen in movies like
Yeah.
Poltergeist and other things. It's creepy eyes and that creepy grin. It works well enough, and I think it's meant to be a little bit silly, I think.
So you bring up the symbols. In the short story by Stephen King, the monkey's actually crashing cymbals.
Okay.
But here in the film adaptation, he's playing the snare drum. Do you know why the change?
No.
Disney. In Toy Story 3, Disney bought the rights to the monkey crashing cymbals, so Osgood Perkins had to
fucking
change it
Disney.
to a snare drum.
Yeah.
However, I think it's a wonderful change. I love he's playing the snare as opposed to beating
Yeah.
cymbals. I think it's really cool. In fact, I think the entire monkey is really cool.
Yeah.
I love his design, his
Yeah.
aesthetic. I don't think they could have done a better job with him.
Yeah. I agree.
I agree. And a lot of the shots, especially when the monkey's first introduced, just staring straight into the camera.
Oh, yeah.
And it's unsettling. I didn't like it, but I liked it.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job with the monkey. But there was a part of this movie I didn't think they did a great job with,
Okay.
and that's the characters.
Really?
I thought the characters were a little obnoxious. I thought
Okay.
young Hal and Bill and their fighting constantly was a little obnoxious. And then when they grow up, Bill is just unbelievably immature,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but in a way that is not funny
Or necessarily believable.
and believable.
Yeah,
Like
that
it
was a
just,
big thing.
I guess they were the only two characters I really didn't like, but I didn't like them. In the short story, Hal and Bill are brothers, and they bicker a little bit, but they don't fight. I mean, they're brothers. And in the film, Bill is almost the villain of the story.
That way he is, yeah. I would argue he is.
And that change just didn't work for me. I just didn't
Interesting.
like it. And some of the dialogue is really cheap. You know, at the end, Hal and Bill are discussing why they're at each other. And Bill's like, "You killed my mom."
Yeah.
And Hal's like, "Well, she's my mom too." And Bill's like,
Right.
"Oh, I never thought of that."
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are brothers. What do you mean you never thought of that?
Yeah.
It was just took me right out of the film, guys.
That's interesting.
Took
I
me
kind
right
of
out of
thought
the film.
that part kind of, I thought it was playing for laughs more than it was.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It was playing for laughs. But that's my point is some of these comedic elements just weren't funny to me. I just didn't find them funny. I
Yeah.
found them
Yeah, there was a
distracting.
clash there, and yeah, I agree. Bill, especially toward the end, was just a little too much, a little too absurd for me,
Yeah.
a little too crazy.
I think had they matured the dynamic that they had as kids in a little bit different of a way as adults, it would have been a little bit different. But that, that kind of, when Bill starts to come into the picture, that's where the movie started to lose a little bit of momentum for me. Because up to that point, it was kind of this weird twisty turn where, Bill reaches out to Hal after however many years, because they talk about, well, this monkey's back in our lives and we're going to have to reconcile that in some way. And then it takes this turn, Bill being the antagonist, where it was too extreme. I mean, the backstory was there. It kind of explained what Bill had been doing, what his goal was to get revenge on his brother for killing their mom. But the deaths become a little bit more predictable, and then it reaches a pretty outlandish stage towards the end where the monkey, instead of beating on the drum like he usually does, starts just drum rolling it, and basically the apocalypse begins.
It wasn't the outlandish kill scenes that didn't work for me. They were great. They were funny, had me laughing out loud. It was the comedy in between.
Sure.
And some of the dialogue in between that I just didn't find funny. And I think that's why the comedy aspect of this film didn't work for me as well.
Yeah.
And because the comedy aspect was such a prevalent part of the film, I would argue this film is more comedy than horror.
Yeah.
Because the comedy aspect of the film didn't work, it made the horror sit differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I struggled with that. There are some characters I absolutely love, though.
Okay.
Lois Shelburne, played by Tatiana Maslany.
Yeah.
She was great. I really, really liked her.
Yeah.
I thought she was fantastic. Another character that I absolutely loved was Aunt Ida.
Okay.
With the big glasses.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
I thought she was great,
grin.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her. So not all the characters were bad, but...
Yeah, I think I'm more forgiving just because it's rare I go to a movie and laugh out loud at certain things. And there's even that kind of weird, serious element towards the end. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. I had to ask, the pale horse, death on a pale horse. I was like, what was that? Like, what was that about? How did that scene hit you guys? Just curious.
I took that scene as kind of a metaphor for the fact that although they were trying to keep the monkey away from everyone else in effort to protect them, the evil was still there.
Okay.
I thought the bus scene was really dumb.
I thought the cheerleaders themselves were misplaced. Like, there's a death in the movie, and all the emergency responders are there taking care of it, and or they're responding to it. They're basically wheeling the body out, and there's a team of cheerleaders. Like,
I don't know why that part I thought it was funny.
What did you? Okay,
it was so stupid, and it was one of the few parts in the movie that I had some mixed feelings about the end though. It took a different tone than the rest of the movie for sure. It was kind of showing that these characters had learned a lesson. And I think that lesson was that they had come to terms with death, with the guy on the horse and him crossing the street. Just that kind of interaction where there's no words said, just an understanding. I took the monkey to be like generational trauma.
Yeah, that's in there for sure.
And finally coming to terms with it.
Yeah, damn, that's a pretty intelligent observation, man.
And I thought it was actually a pretty cool way to say its message, but it clashed so much with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
It was harder to take serious, especially with the cheerleader thing at the end.
That's a good point. I mean, you really only see that exemplified seriously with one dynamic. It's not between Hal and Bill. It's between Hal and his estranged son. In the movie, they're basically, they get to spend this one last week together before Elijah Wood has absorbed all of Hal's dad's powers. Weird little scene. So yeah, it's exemplified there. Their relationship, their dynamic is so undefined and kind of mysterious and odd that I think that's a really intelligent observation, man, because I don't even know that I thought about that until you said it. Well, that's cool.
Well, I think it's time to rate this film, guys. Where do you fall? 1 to 5.
It's hard to say. It's so unique and unlike anything I've seen before, which makes me like it more. And I'm gonna say 3.5.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little more generous, and not to repeat what you just said, but it is unique. It's got some quirky characters. It's got an interesting premise. It's fairly well executed. It's not over bloated. It's got a nice short running time, made on a nice tight little budget, somewhere around $11 million. Some thoughtful, intentional filmmaking, some interesting sensibilities by the director, who I think had a pretty specific vision, had a great music selection throughout the movie, man. Great song selection. And then, some interesting setups, some payoffs, some things that didn't quite work, and some things that I thought worked really, really well. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Good. I'm glad you guys like this film so much.
Thanks,
I struggled with the tonal differences. I could never figure out exactly what this film wanted to be.
Okay.
I loved the understated dark humor in the film. I didn't love the overstated outlandish humor in the film. Yeah. I felt that some of the dialogue was weak, and I felt the characters were a bit obnoxious.
Okay.
I'm going to come in at 2.5. I really wanted to love this movie. I went into this movie expecting to love it, and I was just caught off guard by the tonal chaos of the film. And so I left quite disappointed. 2.5 for me. But if you love this film, we want to hear about it. We'd love to know what you think of The Monkey.
If you are a freak like me and you love dark, surreal, and absurd storytelling similar to what's shown in The Monkey, I insist you watch a movie directed by one of the all-time greats who redefined cinema with his surrealist approach to atmosphere and storytelling. I'm talking about the late David Lynch, and specifically his 1986 film Blue Velvet. There's no better example of a movie that is so off-putting and surreal while still feeling so controlled. Check it out.
Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and shout out to Lynette, a fan of the show who's requested we review Blazing Saddles, a 1974 comedy directed by Mel Brooks, which we plan to discuss next week. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrack, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up with questions, comments, feedback, or your movie requests, and please share this episode with your movie-loving friends.